Hey, welcome to Hell in the Hallway with your host, Billy. Hey, I hate to tell you, we were robbed. We were bamboozled, we were hoodwinked. Maybe I'm showing my age with that Malcolm X reference, or maybe the Grays are showing my age, but I digress. But there are times that we feel disconnected, right? Times we don't really feel in tune with the world. We feel kind of disconnected, but that's normal to have that every now and then, right? But there are individuals who feel disconnected all the time. See, they don't just feel out of tune. They don't feel set apart. See, that's actually a good thing. They feel set aside. Disconnected people feel pain in the inner parts of their soul. Disconnected people seek connection through things that eventually enslave them, or they fall into isolation. Things such as drugs, sex, shopping, drinking, and shopping, I might have some guilt there. But enslavement, that's another topic for another day. Or maybe even isolating themselves, right? With the narrative that they can't trust anyone, right? And keep in mind, as a whole being, we have three parts to us, right? We're physical creatures. We have a physical body. We are emotional creatures. I will include matters of the mind and heart here. We are also spiritual creatures. Now, that one might be up for a debate depending on who you are. But since this is an experience that I hold, this is an experience that I ascribe to, it is something that I wholeheartedly believe in. It's my experience. So sorry, not sorry. But you can be disconnected in all three parts, or one or two, or maybe it depends on the circumstance in which you're what you're going through. Let's say you're disconnected in all three, right? Physically, emotionally, and spiritually. How does that manifest? What does that even look like? So let's say, first of all, to recognize you've been robbed. If you have been robbed physically, maybe somebody have taken something out from your body when you were younger, robbing you of the liberty of feeling safe. You can't even imagine touching someone without feeling their hands on you still, right? Or maybe what's widely not talked about is that you didn't either witness physical affection growing up, or you didn't really even receive it. See, as children, our first environment is in the womb. The vibration of our mother's heart and her voice is our first experience of touch. So experiencing the world through touch is very important for children. So we have to touch them. And of course, I mean appropriately. In a world that fears touching, we actually fail to realize that we actually read how people feel about us based on how they touch us. So when people who struggle with the idea of physicalness, with touching and hugging and things like that, there's something creating that barrier. Now, I'm not talking about people who don't like the back of their necks or stuff touched like that. I get that. That's abnormal. That's gross even. I had that happen to me when I worked at Blockbuster Video, and now I know I'm telling my age now. I'm talking about people who have a real struggle, who actually wince at the idea of being touched too much. Who robbed you? What if you're disconnected emotionally? Maybe you got some past issue that keeps you in bondage, right? Maybe you were hurt in a heartbreak in a relationship and you refuse to let anybody break your heart again. You will not go through that twice. Maybe you were robbed now of being able to fully experience love for what it is. Maybe you notice that when you got into a relationship that you keep people at a superficial level. You don't really give them all your heart. You don't give them all your mind. You don't give them all your time, that's for sure, because it's safer this way. See, we have to recognize those particular cycles that we find ourselves in because they're there. If our family didn't give us love or demonstrate love, that's going to keep us from feeling connected as well. When we don't feel safe, we keep people at an arm's length, or we look for ways to hurry up and get rid of them so we can prove our theory to ourselves that they cannot be trusted. Who robbed you? The last one is spiritually. Now, that's unique, right? And I would venture to say the most dangerous. Maybe you feel like you don't know the meaning of life. Maybe you feel that life has no meaning, right? Or worse than that, maybe you feel like you lack purpose, that you're a waste, that you're just a breathing throwaway, and there can't be nothing worse than that. Maybe you were connected to somebody who has a spiritual walk, and then you were all excited. You were growing in them. You were trying to connect with them, and they hurt you and they trampled all over you. And now you're spiritually robbed. Maybe you go to a spiritual place and they've treated you so poorly, and they were reminding you of who you were and who you're trying not to be anymore, and now you're hurt all over again. You can't grow. What about this one? Maybe you're only looking at being fed from others and not feeding yourself. So you don't even know for yourself who robbed you. So we talked once before how it was the right book and wrong story. And that's the same in all three of these situations, right? We have a set of circumstances that occurred, and we told ourselves a story about ourselves, to ourselves. That's usually negative. Usually operating some maladaptive behaviors, feelings, and thoughts. And it robs us of our ability to live life in a thriving manner. All three have one thing in common: lack of trust. Who robbed you of your lack of trust, of your ability to trust? How do we get it back? How do we begin? I tell you the truth, it's the willingness to engage in the risk to be vulnerable. See, the ability to open up, to gain back strength, and take back what was robbed from you. See, that paradox is real. If I'm vulnerable, I gain strength. However, you have to make sure those around you who you're being vulnerable with have your best interests at heart, because there are some pain vultures out there. They love mess. They like to hear it. They are scavengers. And that's another topic for another day. So when you have healthy people, you can include those in your wellness plan, right? Those are healthy people in your spiritual world, in groups you may use, in friends and family. I'm always going to point you towards counseling, right? Because we see the nuances, right? It's like a sweater that got little bitty threads hanging out. We know just how much to pull. We know just how much tension in order to allow yourself the strength to not be strong. Or maybe a combination of all three, I think is great, honestly. You should always remember, friends, it is not just about the destination. It is also about revelation.